As you can see behind me is, well, you've still got like quite an overgrown bit of canal which is dry, but just behind me there's a building, and that was built by the paper company, I believe in the sort of like late 40s, early 50s. Because the canal were closed and it was deemed redundant, they saw it as somewhere useful to put like a brick store up. So when it comes to restoring the canal, we're going to have to take that down, relocate it, so boats can go through again. Alternatively, you could put another storey on top of the building and let the boats float underneath it. So there's a few ideas there, but I'd imagine because it's an aged building and it's a short life building, it'd probably be cheaper to demolish it and then re-route the canal. Right, we're on lock 17, the top lock of the Manchester Bolton and Bury Canal, and if you can see what we stood on, lovely granite walls again, and just opposite you can see the other side of that lock chamber, and then if you pan right you can see where the gates used to be, you know, the gate coins, where the lock gates were, and just to your left you can see the old wrought iron handrails where passengers used to hold on to them to get to the lower lock. You can just make out they were sort of like really wrought iron. And like I said, there's some steps which you can't make out because it's too overgrown, but like I said, people had held on to them to get up to the upper level. What you're looking at, John, is called Prestilley Aqueduct, and that took the Manchester Bolton and Bury Canal on its lower level to Salford, across the River Irwell. And in the distance you can see some smoke. That's a really old type farm, I think it's Seddenfull Farm. And supposedly the barn there's got like a really sort of crook, you know, one of them ancient type of roofs cut out of wood. And if you can see to my left, John, you can see, again, that's where the flight of locks were. A few years back it was cleared by British Waterways to see what stonework were left. Unfortunately this part of the, you know, the lower part of the locks, many moons ago after the canal shut, a lot of the stone were taken away to strengthen an embankment somewhere on a reservoir. So you'd have to dig down a bit to find the lower courses of the stonework. We're now at the foot of the Prestilley flight of locks. As you can see, the lock merges from all this infill and vegetation growth, and you can see the magnificent stonework. You can see where the lock gate used to be, that cast iron thing on the stone. There would have been a circle there, and that's where the lock gate would have pivoted. And again you can see sort of like the, you know, like well, it looks like markings from here, but that's where you used to grip your feet in when you push the lock gate back. And obviously beyond here you can see the lower level of the canal, what eventually gets to Salford and Manchester. This is a wonderful place.
Even though it is chucking it down.
Yes, and I'm wet and my jeans are soaking and I've got muddy boots. We're looking towards the first of the 6 Prestilley locks, what carried the canal up the hillside to the upper level of Bolton and Bury. Boats going to the right over the aqueduct, which we'll look at shortly. They used to go to Ringley, through Kersley, and eventually get to Salford and Manchester. The metal bridge you can see behind me used to be a complex system of like private branch canals. One arm went straight on and terminated near an old bridge with like an inclined tramway. Another arm went off to the left over the trees over there, and it was a dry dock where boats could float in to let the water out, and then these boats would then rest on big stone blocks so they could repair them. The dry dock's still there. Unfortunately, it's sort of like a big sewer dissects this site, so to reuse the dry dock we need a bit of civil engineering. As you can see, John, we're now standing on a packhorse bridge, and it was the old main road from Bolton to Manchester. Unfortunately for us today it looks more like a mini canal. It's full of water and I've not got any waders, so I'm not going to go across there. But if you look to the right you can see the river, which is quite nice, quite wide. Just farther downstream the River Crowle meets the River Irwell, and then it goes on and all the way down to Manchester before it flows into the Ship Canal. That monstrosity to our left, that's like the major trunk sewer, and just beyond that is the magnificent Prestilley Aqueduct.
Can't see the trunk sewer. Where's the trunk sewer?
It's just that ugly concrete thing. We'll get a view of it on top of Aqueduct, John.
Okay,
we'll get a good shot of that. So we'll go and look at Aqueduct and the bridge made famous by Spring and Port wine. Just about to walk onto Prestilley Aqueduct. It's an absolutely magnificent structure that carries the Manchester Bolton and Bury Canal across the River Irwell. On the canal there used to be quite a few big aqueducts, This one's left, it dates from 1796. It's a grade 2 listed structure, and there's another one at Clifton which is just as magnificent. We'll take a look. As you can see, John, I shouldn't really say hideous because it'll upset a few civil engineers, and maybe in its own modern way it's got a bit of graceful curves, but if you think that separates a magnificent canal aqueduct with the ancient pack horse one, so really, again, in an ideal world that would have been rerouted, that wouldn't have been built, and it would have been put on that riverbed. And the fact that it destroyed the branch canals as well and cut off the dry dock adds injury to insult. Aye. Behind me is one of the original Manchester, Bolton and Bury Canal bridges. It was made famous in the film Spring and Port Wine, starring James Mason. There's a classic scene where his wife from the film is sort of sitting under the bridge and she's about to commit suicide. Mr Mason walks along, consoles her, and they sort of make up. So what could have been a tragedy, it turns out to be a happy ending. It's a lovely bridge, that. It's just unfortunate that over the years it's been vandalised and they've not replaced it with the original brick. They've sort of done like modern fabrications. If you continue on that way, you go all the way to Salford, and back is the basin and Presteley locks. When the canal first opened, it was like the motorways of today, and originally they had what were called packet boats, and these were special boats which were really comfortable, pulled by something like 6 horses. And someone would get on one at Church Wharf in Bolton, behind the parish church, 6 o'clock in the morning, you know, because they want to go to Manchester. What they used to do is get off outside the Canal Company depot at Knob End, and then they used to walk down this road. There used to be like a covered walkway, so passengers didn't get wet. They'd get out the boat, come round at top and walk down here, and then they get on another boat on the lower level to Salford. By doing that, it saved the water in the locks, because if you come up here in a canal boat it'd take an hour. A few years back now, while we're doing some work, it was like a working party on the locks which are just outside of us, and you know what, you get that feeling like you're being watched. You know, like I got a really uneasy feeling over there, like digging with my spade, like uncovering stonework at lock, and I just had that feeling, and then I got goosebumps, and like I turned round and looked across, and then windows are now boarded up. Bearing in mind that used to be Canal Company depot, and like I said, you're a blacksmith and everything, it was really busy. And I looked across, and without any word of a lie, there was a face. And what it was, a really old chap, like grey hair, and all he did, he smiled at me. And I remember thinking, that's unusual, because I knew the building was bricked up, which meant there's no way anyone could have ever got in that building. And this chap looked at me, smiled, and then disappeared. So I remember thinking, God, is it like the ghost of an old boatman? Could have been old Joe.
That's old Joe. I'm old Joe.
So that was that.
It's wet.
I'm absolutely and utterly soaked. If you can see that, you can see obviously jeans are light blue and all the wet's dark blue, and the mud from like trampling over the canal. Get the heater on full blast.
Pouring down. It's going to steam up. It's going to be like a Turkish bath in here, Steve.
It is.